Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about Sid Meier's Pirates.
Yes. No, it's Pirates!
Pirates!
Big exclamation point on the end.
There are not too many games with an exclamation point at the end. Can you think of any more?
There's a pinball machine that's got one. What's it called?
Judge Dredd?
No, it's a Hollywood. It's an old-timey Hollywood. Lights, camera, action!
Oh, okay.
That's got one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's not too many.
That was good, though. I put you on the spot. You answered right away.
And I could be wrong. No one knows.
Yeah.
Don't look.
But before we get into Pirates, we're going to do some feedback. We got a couple messages this week.
Is this good feedback?
It's good feedback.
Okay, good.
So the first feedback comes in from Alan Kebab, new Patreon subscriber.
What's in an Allen kebab?
Well,
You get your onions, your lettuce. You put lettuce on a kebab? You don't, do you? That melts.
sometimes, I mean, kebab in England is different than kebab here. Like, kebab
yeah?
in England is the thing that you said looked disgusting, which baffled me.
Is Allen English?
I don't know. I know very little about our friend Alan.
So you're saying that thing in the picture you put on the thing was a kebab?
That's a kebab. That's what they
Where's
call a
the
kebab.
stick, yo?
So, again, what they call a kebab in England is not what we call a kebab here.
Okay, what do we call what that was?
So, I don't know. I call it a kebab.
Right.
But what it is I guess we call it like shawarma. Are you familiar with that term?
I'm not.
Okay. You know, in England, they basically just have meat on big spits, and they carve the meat off, onto a plate. They put some cheese, they put some, a little bit of lettuce, and then the best thing is they've just got these huge things of sauce, and you just cover it with the sauce.
Uh-huh.
And then you eat it. Oh, there's always a side of chips, which, fries.
Uh-huh.
And
that's what that was.
That's what
was
that
that green stuff in the middle?
That was the lettuce.
See, that didn't look that good. Maybe it was just the way the picture was shot. Because everything you said sounds good to me. Big wad of meat, weird sauce, some fries. I'm down with the clown. Mm-hmm. Then there was this other stuff.
It might have been. Baffling. It actually might have been cheese, like melted, like shaved off cheese.
Green? Would they get it on the moon?
I don't know. It might have been the. I have no idea. But anyway, thank you, Alan. He says, thanks for all your hard work and keeping the podcast going. It's really made my commute to work so much more enjoyable.
Beauty.
Yeah.
Anything that can make going to work better, I'm all for it.
Me too. We also got a message saying, hello from Seattle.
Whoa.
Yeah.
In America?
In America.
Sweet lordy.
I've been listening to your podcast since the 2016 Christmas special and finally got around to becoming a Patreon subscriber. You guys are awesome, and I look forward to the podcast every week. Anyway, just wanted to say hi and thanks for keeping the Amiga dream alive. No need to read my name. I'm not in it for the fame. Just wanted to support you guys so you can keep doing what you're doing.
He doesn't want you singing his name, is what he means.
That may be true.
A wise decision from Seattle.
So thank you, Anonymous, and we appreciate your patronage.
Cool, and it's good to see another
American.
Yank in the joint.
Will Williams has got company.
Yeah.
So, Aaron, what news is going on in the Amiga world this week?
All sorts of news. Actually, it was a pretty newsworthy week for once. There was a lot, actually, that went down. I guess let's just start at the beginning. Our good and dear friend, Mr. Pleasance, whom was just a guest on our show a few weeks back, has kicked off the Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter's killing it, if you will. In fact, as I'm looking at it right now, it is funded.
Yeah.
Which, no surprise there, because when we did the interview, and I mentioned this last week, I was nervous as hell, because this guy, he's like the keeper of the knowledge.
He's the real deal.
He's the real deal. Real nice cat. Real down-to-earth guy. And brother, he knows what he's talking about. And when he says, I'm going to write a tell-all book that gives the full scoop on Commodore, you can damn sure know that he's going to put out a hell of a book. And I can't wait to give this thing a read.
Yeah,
I'm throwing down on the Kickstarter myself, and gosh, I wish him all the luck in the world. I know you recorded something for him, and he was a real nice guy, real good guest, and we appreciate it, and we wish him all the best. And like I said, this thing's already funded.
You know, I'm on a video with Alistair Brimble.
Oh, yeah?
We're kind of collaborators.
Oh, so, is this the testimonial? Yeah. Congratulations on that. And you know, here's the thing. A guy like Mr. Pleasance does not have to come on the Amigos. I mean, he's been on every
There's
real
Rappy.
talk show, every podcast. I mean, this guy does the circuit. But it was nice of him to agree to come on, especially so close to the Kickstarter, and just talk to a couple dumb Americans about
There's
Amiga
Kim.
stuff. Yeah, I mean, look at these luminaries that are.
I have not actually watched this.
Yeah.
They probably cut me from this video.
I'm looking
to be
at who's
honest
on
with you,
this,
'cause,
and no, it would be absurd.
Yeah,
But anyway, if you're interested in going to this, we'll link this up. It's already linked up, actually, if you want to go and throw down on the Kickstarter.
We will be purchasing a copy of this book for the show for our perusal, and
Yeah,
we
yeah,
will
yeah.
be giving it away. In a
Yes,
future episode.
absolutely. We got to get one. So,
Yeah.
and again, this is going to be. I haven't looked forward to a book like this for a long time. This is going to be something that's, especially the way he was talking. He talked to us off camera, and I mean, there was certain topics he didn't want to touch on in the interview, and because he's saving this a big juicy secret to the book, and I don't blame him, frankly.
Right.
But like I said, I had no doubt when he put this thing up it was going to go to the roof, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doubles what he's asking. It wouldn't surprise me a bit because
No.
people, you know. But so if you're into that, if you're into the history or what went wrong, you know, have a look. Another bit of awesome news. This is a great week. All right, the people we love, the people that make our lives so much easier, the company, are back in action. They had 2 releases this week. They put out a trained exe file for Twin World Land of Vision, which is a game that, you know, again, if you're not familiar with the company, these guys or guy, like I said, I'd love to talk to anyone involved with that outfit. But these guys put out, they basically have a pre-rolled Amiga game. It's an exe file. You just download it to your Windows PC and you play it. Bam. It comes with the trainer. It's got all the settings and it's set already. It runs great, and they're great. And hopefully this means you're going to go back and update a lot of those ones that no longer run on Windows.
Yeah.
Anything with 2.5, if you go to their website, which I've got it linked up, they've got a ton of stuff up there, but a lot of it doesn't work anymore on anything beyond Windows 7, thanks to our good buddies at Microsoft for removing some functionality there. And so they were slowly patching the stuff that was 2.5 to make it 2.6, which will work. So if you go on that site and you will see anything that you want to play that's 2.5, unless you're running Windows 7 or back, you're going to have a problem. I've not found no way to run them, and I've tried. And from everything I've read, no one can run them. So, but anyway, this is great news because the company stopped putting out stuff a while. I think it was like last year. It's been early in our run.
They took the whole site down for a while.
Yeah, and then they put it back up without any. They pretty much put a message out that for due to personal reasons they were ending. But
We're glad they're back.
Absolutely, and like I said, it makes. I mean, I can always say, you know, for us, it makes our job easier. When like I said, I've got kind of a gaming Amiga that certain things won't run on. So it makes it a lot easier when I don't have to go and mess around with the emulator. I can just run one file and it works. It's great.
Right.
I know for you, of course, your situation's changed, but still it's a lot easier. They also released this week a game it's a 1994 game called Universe from Core Design, which I've not heard of or seen, to be honest with you. But hey, I'm down. Like I said, if they're going to start cranking it up again, that's great. I'm looking forward to that big time. So welcome back to those guys. Another great thing for the community. The folks over there that put together these fine CD32 compilation discs have done it again with a compilation of magnetic fields works. It's a complete compilation, including, gosh, look at what's on here, Bo. As you look at this thing, you've got Crystal Dragon, Ducks, Kid Chaos, the Lotus Trilogy. Enough said, right? MF Tanks, POD, Supercars 1 and 2, Super Scramble Simulator, and Wrangler. So we have played about, 3 of those, Bo?
I think so.
And there's a couple there that I'm looking at my chops to get a hold
yeah,
of. So,
me too.
hey, You cannot beat it. I don't know if it's Amiga J behind this, but I'm not sure.
I didn't see his name on it.
I didn't see a name attached to it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Yeah, he's usually all up in it. Something else I want to touch on. This isn't really news. It's news to me. A magazine called C64 Commodore Free. I don't think we've ever talked about this before.
No.
It's a free magazine online. The neat thing about this, I thought this was great actually. It comes in a PDF or an ebook for an ebook reader, or you can get a C64 disc image of the magazine, that's tremendous.
That's very cool.
And they actually mention us on there.
Oh wow!
Which is that's not how I found it. Actually, I was darn surprised. I was like, oh look, and it was so that's nice. But man, this content on this thing is tremendous. I mean, I got to give my hats off to the fella putting this together. It's really good. I mean, it's a great magazine. We're very fortunate to have a lot of good quality free magazines up. Of course, we've got the Amigos magazine, which I love, and so and this one's not Amiga. Our Amigos magazine is Amiga only, pretty much. This one, it covers all the Commodore stuff, but they have an Amiga section, and but I know a lot of Amiga users are old C64 guys too. So this is a nice magazine if you want to get a big scoop of nostalgia. They do a lot of interesting stuff. So Alex said, I know this one's been out for quite a while, but I've never seen it before. So
look at this. Have you seen this thing before?
I have. I saw that ad. So what he's looking at, y'all, is a TV. It's a TV adapter or a thing to play multiple classic stuff. It's like basically it's probably like a Raspberry Pi or something stuck in there. Who knows what they've got there. It's a little gizmo to play C64 games on your TV. Another one. I think this may have came out right at the cutoff last week, but I was late to the party. And this is from a site that I've been looking at. It's funny. It's called Generation Amiga. Have you ever been on Generation Amiga before?
No.
It's a site that I can't access in some places. It's weird.
It's on the banned list.
No, it just doesn't come up. I don't know why, but and it doesn't always come up for me anyway, but it comes up at home. Anyway, there's a new game that's been ported over from the ST. It's not a new game. It's new to Amiga. It's called Arctic Moves. Have you ever heard of this game?
No.
It looks awesome. I'm going to get me some of that. It looks like it'd be a lot of fun to give this a shot. So I've not seen it before, and
looks kind of like Rolling Thunder,
which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
This was released in 1995, and then it was released again in 2001 on the Atari ST. So kind of neat. So that pretty much does it with news this week. It was a good week. A lot of good stuff came out. It's good to see the churn starting again. We're getting a lot of action, and with the company doing their thing, that's always nice. And the CD32 stuff, you can't ever get enough of that. So
right.
and the book as well. So it should be. I'd say it's going to be a pretty interesting spring.
Cool.
What do you got for site updates?
Well, we have one lonely site update this week. It's been kind of quiet on the everythingamiga.com front. But
it's a good one.
Intrepid beat reporter Dreamcatcher has put out a review of the Defenders of the Earth game, the DOE, as I believe that they're known. Now, Aaron, you are if not the country, at least the state's leading authorities on comic books.
Oh yeah, I hope Chad doesn't hear you say that because he would destroy me. I'm not even the Amigos leader on comic knowledge. That's easily him.
So tell us a little bit about Defenders of the Earth.
I don't know anything about it. I never heard of him until I read this.
Are you serious?
No, it's Star Comics. Man.
I even know
Marvel
him.
Subsidiary.
That's Phantom. He's in the papers.
Well, here's the thing. I'd never heard of this outfit, and I had never heard of this game. And I saw that title screen. I'm like, holy crap, that looks awesome, and the box looks awesome. I gotta give me some of this. So this game's on my short list for an Amigos play. So actually, I think I made a comment about it. As usual, DK got in there deep and looked over different versions, explained the origins of it, which were crazy, wacky. Mm-hmm. It looks like a pretty neat game. Apparently, it's not that great, but it looks pretty cool.
It does look cool.
And so I read that article and I was like, man, where's this thing? It's amazing. Having been in the Amiga biz for the last couple of years, hardcore, and back in my younger days, I was into it, and it's amazing how much stuff slips past me. Mm-hmm. Which, much like today's game, I had not played this until this review.
Wow.
I'd never, and
Interesting.
I'd. It's one of those games I'd heard about. I'm like, man, I don't get it. I don't get it. But it wasn't what I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
So, but this game's another one I hadn't even heard of it.
Well, let's talk about it. It's time. Sid Meier's Pirates.
So, this is an interesting game. Now, before we get too far into this, I played the original version. I didn't play the CD32 version, which was Pirates Gold, because I want to get a feel for the original.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a look at the other ones, which I'll get into that a little bit later. Did you play the original as well?
Yeah, I played the original.
So, this came out on the Amiga in 1990 on 2 discs. It was developed by Microprose Software Labs. And of course, these guys were pretty good. They did Civilization, which we covered. They did Gunship 2000. They did a Covert Action, which is sort of the spy equivalent of Pirates. F-19, a Railroad Tycoon, Secret Service, Red Storm Rising. All these are pretty quality games. I mean, I've touched at least... I've had a cup of coffee with most of them over the years. The Amiga port of this, before it came out originally on the C64, was handled by Steve Borer, and this was a Sid Meier joint, as you mentioned.
Can you think who? So we got David Crane. He puts his name on his games. Anybody else? Any other developers that right off the top of your head?
Kitching's pinball, was it who did Pinball Construction?
That was Bill Budge.
Kitching did one.
Paul Kitching?
What was his?
Not
Not ours, the other one.
But not the other one either.
There's so many. It's hard to keep track. Here's a funny story about that I read. Again, Digital Antiquarian is a great site, and they did a little blurb on this that I read. This game, when it was, just to get a little back history of this. So, when this game was pitched, it was originally pitched with the thought in mind that it was going to be a simulated battle between boats. And it was going to be something along the lines of one of those old school Avalon Hill
strategy games.
Games where it was real with charts and
strategy.
Yeah, right. And that's how they pitched it. And if you've ever played anything from the old Avalon Hill board game series, they're pretty deep, time-consuming, laborious games.
Right.
I had a cup of coffee with Avalon Hill. Of course,
I've got one of them you got me for something a couple of years ago right over there.
Yeah, right. And Avalon Hill games are very prized because they birthed a lot of what is now video game simulation.
Right.
So, Sid Meier's had an idea for a game in mind of his pirate game along those lines. He visited the Caribbean and did a little research and stuff. But basically, when this was originally pitched, it was pitched as, like I said, a simulation. And so Sid Meier's had also communicated with a fellow that worked for Microprose Labs that had learned how to basically render on-screen menus quickly on the C64. I don't know all the programming gymnastics behind it, but it was apparently quite a coup. And it could throw quick graphics and windows on the screen. And so Sid Meier's thought, well, this sounds like it'd be right up my alley. We can use this technology that you've come up with. We're going to make this game Pirates. And so when he originally made it, the people at Microprose were like, the guy running it was like, wait a minute here. This isn't our kind of game. We do simulators. We do your F-19s.
Mm-hmm.
We do your gunships. Mm-hmm. That was our bag.
Our Microprose wrestling.
Right. No. That's boy. So he was like, how am I going to pitch this? So anyway, they made the game. I'll skip ahead to answer your question about the name. So there's an anecdote in the story where the guy that ran Microprose was at dinner, he was at an awards event with Robin Williams of all people, and they're at a table, and they were discussing how weird it was that that rock stars were famous and authors were famous and movie stars were famous, and athletes were famous, why weren't video game designers famous? And the guy's like, and he put that in his back pocket. So when it was time to pitch this game, they're like, listen, Sid Meier has a good rep. Let's put his name on this and push this guy like a maniac, And so this is the first game that has Sid Meier's name on it. Of all the games he ended up doing, which is and he did so many good games. And to put this to the test, and this is also in the story, he says he was at a dinner with Sid Meier's, and he said, "Listen, this is how publicity works." And he walked up to the waiter and he said, "Listen, I don't want to. My client Sid Meier's doesn't want to be disturbed during this dinner." And the waiter's like, "Who's Sid Meier's?" And he's like, "That guy. He's a famous author." He's like, "We don't want any disturbances while we're eating." And they said by the time they left the restaurant, he had 20 people he'd given autographs to. Now, no one knew who this guy was.
That's.
And then to further give this as an example, my buddy at work, I was talking to him. I told him this story, and I was like, "Have you ever heard the name Sid Meier's?" And he goes, "Sid Meier's? Yeah, he's a game developer." I was like, "Can you name any of his games?" He goes, "No, but I know the name."
That's all you need to know.
I thought to myself, how bizarre.
Yeah.
Why would you even know that?
Yeah.
Well, he probably heard Sid Meier's Railroad Tycoon or Sid Meier's Civilization or blah, 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 blah. So it worked. It worked. And so that's the way they pitched the game. They basically pitched on the basis of his ability to have a good rep, and then they just made up the rest effectively. So anyway, the way the game developed was, again, they did a lot of research, as they always do, even when they do these simulation games, and they wanted to make it a game that captured the era of pirates and whatnot. Actually, they shot a little bit earlier than your main event pirates, your Blackbeards, and that, stuff. But Sid wasn't shooting for a historical game. What he wanted was the stuff he'd seen on TV, Errol Flynn.
Right.
He wanted cutlasses and ship-to-ship cannons and all that jive.
Swinging on ropes.
Yeah, exactly. And so, which you don't do, but I guess it sort of do it mentally. Don't
in my mind, I swing on ropes.
So they got down, and really, he only had about 2 people on the project. And this was originally it was developed on the C64. Okay, which probably a pretty good coup for the 64 because they had pride. Apparently, Sid Meier's, this is also kind of interesting, his weapon of choice was the Atari computers. And Microprose is like, listen, these things they're too old.
Right.
You've got to move on. And they pried him off the C64 and said, or pried him off the Atari and stuck him on a Commodore. And he got into Commodore, and started cranking them out. So he only had a couple people working on it. And eventually, another guy towards the end worked on it. So they had roughly 2.5 to 3 people work on the original version. And when they released it, it was under his name. It was quite popular. It got released on a bunch of stuff. And it's the usual suspects when it comes to the release. Of course, it got a C64 release, which was its original computer. CPC. The Apple II and the 2GS. We got to get one of those. I'm telling you, it'll be cool. The Atari,
put it right next to the Archimedes.
Atari ST. We're going to get one of those one of these days. The NES. The NES had this. Did you ever play it?
That's where I played it. That's where
really. So you had played this before on the NES?
I think that I checked it out on an emulator once, but
you never actually played it in depth on the NES.
No.
Do you remember how it compared at all?
I think it probably played better on the NES just because you had multiple buttons.
You might be right. Of course, there was a PC version, and then there were some remakes, and we'll just touch on them briefly. They released a version of this for the CD32 called Pirates Gold. And they also released an updated version on the PC, and then a super updated version like 2000. Gosh, it was 2004, 2008. They released like a newer version that was like super updated, a little bit different, to certain. But I had to look at all these, and we'll talk about that later. So, what do you do in this game? It's a simulation of a life of a guy. Basically, that lived in. You can pick when you lived. Effectively, you can in the 16th, 17th, or 18th century. Okay. The game is really open ended. When you start with your guy, you get a ship and a crew, and you can decide how you're going to live. You can work for one country and try to gain a lot of favor. You can switch countries. You can do stuff to endear yourself to one country and make
it's very open worldish.
Or you can just be a scumbag and just kill everyone you see.
That's the best way to play.
Well, I'm not sure it's the most productive way. It's set in the Caribbean. It includes the Spanish Main, Central America, the Yucatan Peninsula, all of the Gulf of Mexico, Florida, and all the Caribbean islands, plus Bermuda, which is ludicrous.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Until I read that, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But, you can sail around this game, and you can just go on forever until you run out of food, or you get killed. And even then, you don't really get killed.
Mm-hmm. You always just end up in prison in the end, right?
Yeah, a lot, as we'll talk about. So, you get basically at the beginning of the game, you get a letter authorizing you to be a privateer for one of these various countries, and then like I said, you can switch who you're going to work for throughout the game. So no matter what you start doing, you don't have to. It's not like you're locked in,
right?
Which is that's part of the charm of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you discuss the meat of the game? What are you doing?
In a way, this is sort of like a Cinemaware game.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. Cinemaware should have made this game. It would have been very similar.
It would have been similar. It's based on a series of mini games that are bookended by dialogue scenes. In a way, it's sort of like Defender of the Crown on water. You're defending. When you're working for a particular country, in a way, it's sort of like that is your turf that you're defending. There's a couple mini games that are worth mentioning. There's one where you have ship-to-ship combat, and it's sort of you're playing against the other ship, but you're also playing against the wind.
The wind.
Yeah.
If you want to go the wrong way towards that wind, you're boned, sir.
Yeah. The way that the game handles these vast expanses of water is pretty neat. Your ship is drawn much larger than life, against the map, but you're still, there's still several screens where there's nothing but blue, but it manages to keep both ships on the screen at the same time through various ways. In the ship-to-ship
almost
combat,
Star Control-y in a way.
Yeah. In the ship-to-ship combat, you're basically trying to cannonball your foe into submission. But you can also ram your opponent, your opposing ship, whether you want to or not. Sometimes I found myself ramming the ship when I did not mean to.
The funny thing about it is when you're in ship-to-ship combat, there's only a few ways it's going to go. The ship's going to get away, or you're going to get away. All right, number one. Number two, you're going to blow up the ship and sink it, which is no good for anybody.
Right.
Or number three, you shoot it until it can't go as fast, and then you run into it.
That's
pretty much it.
And that's the best way to go, as you hinted, because at that point the scene shifts. You mount the ship.
Mount it?
In a raging inferno. I don't know what's burning on these ships, but there's a lot of stuff burning. You don't see it on the deck once you start the sword fighting scene, and the sword fighting is based upon controller movements rather than button presses. So this is much, much better than the sword fighting that's in Defender of the Crown, where you're basically just clicking the mouse as fast as you can. In this, there are a variety of moves that you can do. I've managed to win the sword fighting most of the time. I don't know how good the AI was, but anyway, the sword fighting it's pretty well animated. I mean, it doesn't look like Prince of Persia. It's not that smooth, but you can see the captains doing the moves that you tell them to do.
I was not good at sword fighting. I could win a lot, but I don't know how.
Right, and
I would get one move and then beat it to death. I'm hitting the overhand. It's like I get hot.
Yeah,
bam, bonk him. And I've heard that the swords, and I've read this a couple places where you give you the choice of weapons when you sword fight. I think it's a rapier,
an epi or something that.
But I know the one you don't want is the long sword. They said that's the weakest one.
I never chose the long sword. It sounded lame.
I usually get the rapier just because it's cool.
Yeah.
But the sword fighting, that was probably one of the weaker elements for me. You could have made. If they'd put a really strong sword fighting element in this, that would have been awesome. Because that's probably one of my biggest complaints with this thing so far.
I think that maybe they would have combined the controller movement with a button press and sped up the animation to make it more of a Twitch experience. It would have improved things a lot.
I will say, having looked at this on the CD32, I watched a video of it and read some stuff. Multiple buttons, and the C32 version of this is quite a bit different graphically. Of course, you've got the AGA chipset to work with, and multiple buttons. I don't know how the sword fighting plays on C32, but that's probably the way to go. I mean, it looked smoother and the guys were better looking, and I'm assuming it probably plays better at that point.
Yeah. So at any rate, once the sword fighting is complete, and if you are victorious, you have the option of basically taking what's on the ship and sinking your opponent's ship, or you can send a crew over there and make the ship part of your fleet.
Which I screwed up so many times by splintering I would capture every ship I had,
right?
And then I would run out of crew.
Yeah, I went the other way. I sunk all the ships and took the plunder because I like to run lean and mean.
I should have done that.
Yeah.
But every time I play this, I always try to keep the ships. I don't know why.
So there's an economic element to this game where you're buying and selling goods. You can take your plunder into a port and sell it. You can buy, you want to keep enough food and vegetables and things to keep scurvy at bay. But that's basically the heart and soul of the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of spice that is added in to make the game, to fill the game out. For starters, you have allegiances with certain countries, and other countries hate your guts. And depending on how you play it, and you can even, some governors will ask you to do a task for them to get back in their good graces. Sometimes you'll go out and capture pirates, and that'll help. But basically, you are never on everyone's good list, which what that does to you is, among other things, that makes it so you can't go to certain ports. They'll either attack you on sight in certain ports, depending on how much they hate you, or sometimes you'll have to sneak into town. And when you sneak into town, it limits your choices. Like if you sneak into town to go see the governor, I wouldn't expect a good response. Another thing you can do is put a landing party down and go and mess with cities. This is probably one of the clunkier aspects of the game.
Yeah, I couldn't get into to me, it took me out of the experience because it was giving me too many options that I didn't know how to control at that point.
Yeah, I understand. The good thing about it is, though, I will say one thing. I can see why this game is so popular. And once I played it for about a half hour, I got it. If you were playing games back when this came out, an open-ended style world would have been, really almost completely foreign.
Sure.
It's just the amount of freedom this game gives you it's got to be one of the first games to give you this much freedom and movement and what you can do, where you can go. And it feels like you're surfing, you're going across the world, and it's big. It's a big world, and that makes it neat. You sort of can overlook the limited gameplay. You spend a lot of time on menus in this.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'd say 70 to 80% of your time is in menus.
Right.
And even the map screen where you're driving your boat around, and when you're fighting, it's not like, this is not Star Control levels of combat. This is just, you've got so many cannons, and so much crew. The other ship's got so many cannons and so much crew, and you just sort of position your ship and try to catch the guy and go with the wind. There's some strategy into it, but it's not like
you don't have multiple weapons, which, ships didn't have multiple weapons back then, so it's realistic. You had the cannon, and that's it.
I liked there were some things that were interesting. You could go, when you went to taverns, you could obviously pick up new crew, but occasionally a guy would be like, hey, I've got a hot tip for you, or I've got a map for you, or I've got some special news, and you pay him 100 gold and a coin, and he would say, this is a place that has a bunch of money coming there. Or if you captured some things, it would let you know about certain the location of treasure fleets, or the another thing called the silver train, which would be where they were just shipping silver back to the New World or whatever, and you try to get your ship in there. I don't know what that.
Silver Train.
That's Crazy Train. There's no song called Silver Train Boat. Bad boat. The another thing you can do in this is pick up chicks, which I thought was funny.
It's also a defender of the crownage.
Yeah. I guess the best way to explain this is at the end of the game. Another thing about this game that's unique is no matter what era you start in, your character ages, and time goes by.
Mm-hmm.
And as time goes by, this game has a unique system where things happen. The world changes, stuff you don't see, and you'll read the news. Okay, Spain's fighting England. This town just got sacked. And it will affect how much your goods are worth in certain places. It'll affect who's suddenly hostile towards you, among other things.
I mean, it's
So there's a lot going on. That's one of the things that's different from a Cinemaware game. Whereas where Cinemaware games are pretty straightforward, there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that probably you don't think about, but it affects play. Not in the arcadey way you're playing some of the stuff in the sword fighting, but in the actual strategy way of where do I go to make the most money off my goods. I mean, you could play this game and be completely murder free if you took the notion, I guess.
Right.
But and just go around and do trading. What it reminds me of a lot is like some of the old space trading games,
well,
like your Elite.
It's kind of like Elite.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to go the trading route, if you want to be a trucker of goods,
I would wager that the guys that originally made Elites, they probably had a good hard look at this game, or or vice versa. I'm not sure which
Elite
predated it. Yeah,
Elite
it's pretty close. The ability to progress in the game is based solely on the amount of money you make and the amount of like when you get married, like which woman you marry matters. And at the end of the game, when you're too old to continue your career, it's retirement time, there's a big scale, and the game will rate you on how well you did on the scale. And I think the bottom level is like beggar or something, and up the top where you're like a noble. And it gives you a little speech. Here's what you did. Here's how much money you made, and here's this and here's that. And so there's a finite. There's an end of the game, but that's the only end. I mean, like you said, one of my main problems with the game was I kept steering my boat into the shore a lot. I had a hell of a time negotiating some of the close to land areas, and I sank a lot of boats and multiple games. So I tried all the different time periods, and so my guy would spend a lot of time deserted on an island or in jail. If you try to bust through a harbor and they kick your butt and take your boat or sink it, you're going to jail. And so it shows the time click by as you sit there. And when you get out, everything you knew has changed, and you basically effectively start over.
Like,
And so that's an interesting aspect to the game, the time part of it. And it's funny, every so often it'll say, you're still fit, you're still good to go, you're still a young man. Oh, you're feeling your aches and pains. Oh man, it's getting rough. And then you're like, man, you're nearing the end. And I've read that and I don't know, I have no way to confirm this through play. I didn't notice it, but they say as your guy ages, he becomes less effective at things. I guess sword play, for example, which is a neat element as well. What's that?
Loving.
The
game doesn't go there.
It doesn't go there. It's not like that awesome scene in The Defender of the Crown where the curtain's drawn.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting game. The controls are good everywhere to the point of the sword fighting. Again, that's my major gripe about it. And maybe with time I could get better at it, but it's just not that fun. That's an element that could have been more fun. It's funny, when I looked at this game to start off, I was kind of scared. I'm like, man, this looks like it's going to be a real... We just got finished playing Syndicate, and I mean, that's no easy task to get into that. And so here I am trying to play this, and thankfully we did this this before the interview, weren't we? We've had an extra time to play this.
Yeah, we've had... this has been on the docket for 3 weeks now.
And so... I got to play it a lot more, and that helped. And once I got into it, I realized, okay, this stuff is not a huge thing like an inventory and all. So I was really worried. And now, but having played it, it's fun. And I looked at some of the other versions. Like I said, the CD32 version, I thought, okay, let's see if they do anything. Which, yeah, they did a ton. It looks different. It's got a full intro with these pirates at like a tavern talking, and it's all digitized sound. It's all CD quality music. They play Popeye's theme a lot. I've noticed the graphics are completely different. It looks a lot better. I'm guessing the extra buttons are in use, which would help on some of the aspects of it. I don't know how much fun it would be to wait on load times and stuff. I have no idea how long it takes. That could kind of be a bummer. But I was impressed. It looks good. So then I checked out the latest PC remake. Of course, this with the CD32 version is the new. I mean, look at that. We're looking at this now, and the guy. It looks so much. It looks almost like a fighting game, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The PC versions of this that are really new, and man, they're quite beautiful. Actually, it's very attractive game, and they did a good job. Now, how it plays, I don't know. I just watched a video of it. I didn't try playing the PC version, but I mean, I know when it came out a few years ago, people were very excited. And again, this is a game I didn't fully get the appeal of until I actually sat down and played it. But it's that open-endedness, man. I was always wanting that in a game. You know, even, and this is going to sound stupid, but you remember the Oregon Trail. That game had a certain level. For me, I don't know why, but it had this certain open-endedness that I enjoyed. You know, it lets you pick how you wanted to proceed, and you didn't know what was going to happen. It wasn't the same thing over and over, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. And I enjoyed Pirates in a similar way. It's just the fact that you can just go out and drive around, it makes it fun. You know, and the fact that there are certain things I don't like. Don't get me wrong, the sword fighting the wind is, and especially if you have fooled around playing on the higher levels, it's tedious to say the least. You're screwed if you try to go the wrong way. You just got to wait till the wind. Which, I mean, again, that's probably a good simulation.
Very realistic. Very realistic.
But I mean, basically it's a time suck. You just sit there and wait for it to switch. What were your overall thoughts on the thing?
Yeah, I tended to like this game more than the Cinemaware games, just because I think that a lot of Cinemaware games, Wings being probably the one exception, are a lot of flash and a mile wide and an inch deep. This really felt like it had some depth to it. It felt like a game that would reward you the more that you played it, the more you could kind of become part of the world. The open-endedness was very cool. There were a lot of things that I just didn't get, and I like that in a game. You know, I don't want to be able to understand everything right off the first time I play it.
It is neat that there's things going on that change the entire makeup of the world from a political way.
I will note that if you're watching on this, we're watching the PC version, and apparently there is a dancing minigame in the modern version that was lacking from the Amiga original.
Well, I'll be honest, I never got to a point where I was married. So which was, and also another thing you have to do is, like, sometimes you have to go rescue your family, find your family. So there are some little missions in there as well, which kind of make it interesting. But overall, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, it's not the best game ever played by any stretch of the imagination, but I get it. You know, that's the thing. I get it now. It's always been a puzzle to me as to why this one had gotten so popular. But, I mean, everybody likes pirates, but, I mean, it's the open worldness of it's really what makes a game. And the funny thing is, you mentioned it being like a Cinemaware game, which it is. But it's like, this game's close to being really good. It's close. It's good, but it's close to being great. And there were a few things that cut it short. I think the Cinemaware's presentations are better. Their overall presentation, they've got a lot of panache that I didn't think this game had. But this game, and I'd kind of put them equal in terms of the actual mini games. They are up and down.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to compare. Defender of the Crown was so much earlier.
I'm thinking more of the one we did last time with Rocket Ranger. I think Rocket Ranger's minigames were a little bit better than these, but it's not like they were great.
Yeah.
This one, what it had over the Cinemaware game is depth. Depth of the world. I mean, much like the Cinemaware games, there was a lot of repetitiveness. I'm stranded on an island for the 15th time. I'm in jail for the 100th time.
Yeah.
But there was enough stuff going, simulated stuff, and you could see where a company like this, who had done nothing but simulators up to this point, they took that simulator knowledge and they stuck it in the background of this. It's still there because that's what they do. It's the core of their business. And then they put this Cinemaware game over the top of it, and they came out with something that's really unique.
Yeah.
And I know the game Covert Action, which I mentioned, is another one they did. And I'm we'll have to check that one out somewhere down the line because I've heard it's similar to this, but it's more spies. And that might be kind of fun.
That sounds cool, yeah.
So
sort of like,
although it's not nearly as hell, and it's not as endearing to everyone as this was. It wasn't as popular.
What was the game that we did a couple months ago with the spy game, Top Secret Episode, or Golgo 13, or What was that? The game where you're you have like the sniping thing,
Oh,
and then you
yeah.
rescue the embassy mission.
What was that called?
Was
It was
hostages.
Hostages.
There we go.
It was that game was way more popular than I would have guessed. Yeah, and that was a
Yeah.
neat game too. Boy, that was a real neat one.
Yeah.
This is not. I doubt that's anything like that.
I was going to say, I wonder if that covert action game is similar.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to have a look. But overall, I give it a thumbs up. It's a good game. I'll probably go back to it. I may go and give the CD32 game a try. And if I do, I'll do an Amiga's play on that one. I'll let you know what I think about that one.
Cool. Did you have a look at eBay and see what this is selling for?
I did, actually. Let me see where I stuck it here. I could not find a copy of this. This is another one where I couldn't find a copy of it locally. Let me see here. Well, I'll have to amend that at some point because I don't know where I put the number. I know I couldn't find one in the States. Mm-hmm. And the since we're sitting here, we can just look it up, can't we?
Yeah.
I looked this up about 3 weeks ago, so we'll see if the prices have changed.
So it looks like you've got a copy of Pirates Gold with the manual for the CD32. Game not mint. But for $110, that's a lot of money for a game that's not mint.
Yeah. Then again, if you're buying this, you're probably not going to play it.
Yeah,
right.
It's destined.
If
for
you're going to pay
yourself.
$110, Wow, and look at that.
That looks like it.
Why don't you go up and click on what's the ones that have ended, and see how it did.
So it looks like there's an Amiga copy.
No one bought that one.
Yeah, for $299, but with no bids.
Never pay $300 for any video game.
Yeah.
20. There's 26. So I mean, those are pretty lofty prices for an old game.
Yeah.
That's $30. So if you can catch it, or if you own it,
To be honest with you, that's not that game looks like it's in pretty good shape. $26.
It's something to hold on to, and I believe these shipped with a cloth map. I don't know if they all shipped with it, but I saw it mentioned a bunch of times. So if someone out there can confirm that, you can let us know. But I think it had a map with it originally. So it looks good. It's a good looking game. But yeah, I enjoyed it. But I think I've had enough of these deep, heady games for a while. That's all we've done.
Yeah,
here
we need
recently.
to do some lighter stuff. So before we close this thing out, I'd like to remind everybody to please check out our site. The official website of the Amigos can be found at everythingamiga.com. We've got all kinds of stuff going on there. We've got long form reviews, the Amigos Magazine, of course. All of the Amigos Plays videos, Gary Hucker and Will Williams, their repair and modding videos. I'd like everybody else to, I'd like you to also check out Amiga Tees. If you click on the link from the site over at TeePublic, we have a generous selection of Amiga-based t-shirts, including the official Amigos t-shirt. There are several to pick from, our most popular being the Amigos Staff and Supporters shirt. So check that stuff out. And finally, I'd like to thank our Patreon subscribers. Now, Aaron, I know you look forward to this every week.
That's why I had you pour me additional bourbon.
And Aaron, I know the last week you kind of gave me a hard time because you said that I practiced the song too much. So I have never practiced this before. Okay. Now I know that you're a fan of Zeppelin.
That's true.
You're a big fan of Led Zeppelin.
And so now you're going to hurt me.
So I thought we'd do a little tribute to Page and Plant this evening and our Patreon subscribers. So here we go.
Very fancy.
Alan, Kebab David McCrandles, Gary Harker, Will Williams, Ravi Abbott, Kim Tommy, Umbustad, Josh now.
You're in trouble now.
Lane Eric Nelson, Graham Webcake, Paul Harrington, Rob O'Hara. Lauren Giroux, Jonas Rollo, Bob Young Barman, tapes from the crib. Now we're gonna switch it up. That's right, it's the Mega Mix.
Is that what that is?
Adam Bradley, Chris Folds, Daniel Bingston O'Brien's, Chad Halstead, and Brent Dowdy. Special thanks to Retro Gameplay Channel for your footage of pirates.
Beautiful, man. If I had my light, I'd have lit you up right there.
You would have lit me physically on fire.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, if you would like to be part of that glorious litany, then feel free to check us out over at patreon.com/Amigos podcast.
What are you gonna do if that list of names gets so long? You're going to start doing. You're going to start singing like Anagata Vita.
American Pie.
Yeah.
I can do the whole Tales of Topographic Oceans album.
Oh my gosh.
So, Aaron, next week, and we alluded to this before, we're going to do it a little bit lighter. We're going to have our second Amigos Arcade Spectacular.
Yes. 2 games each or 3 games? What did we do last time?
3 games.
3 games. I've already got 3 picked out. I got
That's
10
great.
picked out. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready too. I can't wait to do this.
That'll be
These
a
are
lot
always-
of fun.
These are
Yeah,
always
yeah.
one of my favorite kinds of episodes. So we will see you all then. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
Adios.
Adios.